Hey, it's all you.
Oh, Dawn, you're on. Does Dawn have permission, Miranda, to participate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, and Sarah, hi.
Hi.
Hi. All right. Well, I posted some goals on the website. I've talked to a few people. I don't know where you guys want to start. Does anyone else have a list that they want to put up? If that's a no, do you want to start with the list that I made and tweak around on it?
Are you going to share your screen, May?
I don't know how to do that. I sent that email to Miranda, and it's also on our Google Doc.
I can pull it up. Give me one
Thanks.
moment.
Yeah, I'm not the most tech savvy person in the room, I'm afraid.
I should have kept it open. I closed it, and I can't really say why I did. So hold on 1 second. Okay, this is it. This is the one, right?
Yeah. Great.
Okay, there we go.
Because I don't think, do we have any other working documents? I seem to have lost most of my notes. I couldn't find
No,
them.
yeah, your guys' folder is pretty empty. So I added I made a Word document with the vision statement, but it doesn't appear there's much more in there aside from the audio.
Okay. So what I have for arts is, I mean, I just took these off the top of my head. There's nothing set in stone about any of them, but I have encourage and support partnership, which features live music, find ways, I'm going to read this off my own thing. Find ways to integrate local artists into projects, such as map signs and guides. And an example of that would be expanded trail and road tour maps. And I expand on that a little bit. Great places you can hear or view birds. I know we have kind of a walking tour map for around Netherland with some of the sites, and I think that's great, but I think we could have a couple more. I know there's Sharon at the visitor center, when it's open, engages with a lot of people, and they might have interest in different things. We might even consider putting some, um, like if we have a map of places to view art, we might defray part of the cost of printing with putting some ads in from local businesses. I haven't really thought it through. 3 would be expand the use of community theater to include more programming, maybe more movie nights. Dawn was telling me there's a gentleman that's enthusiastic about doing that, and I know people are talking about live theater. 4 would be maintain and maximize usage for existing gallery space, and 5 is find ways to invite public to view or participate. So, what say you? Do we want to encourage and support partnerships which feature live music? And should that be at the beginning, or is there a more general statement we want to make in terms of goals?
I think this is a good framework to work with them. I think that Jesse had posted some stuff about trails that fit into ProSab that they're doing around Barker because they just won a grant. So there's definitely things that fit in with what's currently happening. So you could almost have this is a goal and then a check mark next to it because of what ProSab just got funding for.
Awesome. Yeah. Exactly. I know that there's a lot going on there. And I'd love to see, we have some fabulous talent in town, photographers, artists, nature people that can draw or photograph nature. And, when we get a grant, be great to be able to sponsor some of that work, I think. Get local people. Do people think that's a realistic goal? Deb, you've weighed in. Sarah, do you have any comment on that? Or Dawn?
So which one are we talking about, Maya? The second one or the
Yeah,
first one?
still on the second one.
I love that goal. I think you guys have done an awesome job with this.
Awesome. Okay, community theater, expand that kind of programming. I don't know whether we want to try to flesh that out. Dawn, any ideas?
I can speak to that. So, the Backdoor Theater is looking into the summer to reopen with their original format, which is the Friday and Saturday night first run movies. But right as the shutdown was happening, I know that they had earmarked money, to buy the rights to put up a show, a small show to start with. And I know that's been one of their goals for a very, very long time is to bring back live theater. So, it would be coming out of the nonprofit of the Backdoor Theater, not from the community center, but I know that they're interested. So I know about that. And what May referred to earlier, one of the board members at the Backdoor Theater has some really great ideas about how to expand their programming to more fully utilize the space. And it had to do with like a classic movie in addition to the Friday and Saturday night movies. Also like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe evening for an example, not necessarily, but like a classic movie night or an action movie night, focus more toward adult only audiences while the kids, during the school year while the kids hopefully were in school. Again, those are just ideas that have been thrown out. Those aren't like plans that are in the process because I have to caution you that that has not been taken to their board yet. Those were ideas that he had shared with me that he was in the process of taking to their board. So I don't want to overstep and say this is happening at the Backdoor Theater. But those are some of the ideas that are being considered.
Great. Yeah, let's add the live theater into that. You mentioned that, Dawn, somewhere in there.
Yep, I know that they want to do that. Funding has been an issue. If you're not aware, the rights um, to plays are expensive, and if you do a musical, then you have to buy the rights to the music and to the play. You have to do it twice. So it's not a inexpensive proposition to put up a live show. So that's been one of their obstacles all along. The movies are that they show, they're expensive to um, get get from the studios, and then the studios take a percentage of the box office, and the bigger the blockbuster, the bigger percentage is taken. So that's kind of how that works. So they've been in a kind of stuck in a rut of getting the movies, showing the first run movies, and then using the proceeds from what they just showed to buy to purchase the next film that's going to be shown. And that's pretty much it. They are just like hanging in there on the steady of keeping it going.
Yeah. The other thing that comes to mind is the Peak to Peak Corral does incredible shows, and I've always felt like we kind of could have done better by them. I know they knocked Netherland off their show list even before the COVID. Um, so if we had maybe a way to, I don't know, some kind of a procedure for requesting the theater that was somebody would have to spearhead it, but they would be people too that I would love to see at the theater. So, but I think we have it covered. More programming, more movie nights, concerts, even. Can we say concerts?
Define concert. So we at the community center, if you remember, back 2008, 9, we had concerts here, and they were indoor concerts, and that's actually was one of Peter's motivations for building the venue that he has. Was like, this just does not lend itself well. So if you had a small concert, the community center lends itself more to um, not groups, but like smaller kinds of things. I don't. There was series done back in, oh, before the community center was remodeled. There was a Chautauqua series that was done here. It was really interesting. There was a chamber music series that was done. Those kinds of concerts,
Yeah.
one-off stuff. Is that what you were thinking of?
Yeah. I mean, the Peak to Peak Corral's a little bit bigger, but they play in granges and
Sure.
tiny places. They're pretty small scale.
Yeah.
Any more comments on the use of the theater? It's such a great resource. Can't wait to have more stuff going on up there.
What about poetry readings?
Yeah, they do those at the library.
Right.
And that's a great place for it, but the one I went to was packed.
Yeah, I went to one in the library, and honestly, there wasn't even enough room for everybody.
No.
There were some people in the main room, and then everybody else was kind of out amongst the books and stuff. So anyways, I just think it'd be kind of cool to do, poetry there if possible.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're dreaming.
Well, and I'm all for mixing things up, have a little poetry, maybe a little music, a short film or something. If you can pull it together, it's really just a question of you set a time and then you fill it. But great ideas. Anything else? Okay.
What about dance?
Dance, yeah. It's already being used for dance, so we should recognize that, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to share an idea with you all that I have had working at the community center over the years and just being in the community for more than that. We have some incredible dancers in our community that not a lot of people know that these folks are even dancers. And I've often thought how great it would be to do a dance review at the theater here. I mean, some of these people are phenomenal. And everything from tap to salsa to folk, traditional, all ballet, all kinds of it. So just to do an open dance review, I always thought would just be so much fun. So I've talked to a few of the dancers just on the side over the years and said, if this were ever to happen, would you be interested in participating? And to a person, they all say, "Oh, I haven't danced professionally in so many years. I'm just not very good anymore." Well, they're not very good as compared to what I can do. It's really great to watch, right? So I would be all about watching these folks. So things like that, just kind of something different that we haven't done in the community before that isn't your typical, concert that folks regularly attend. I just thought that was an interesting idea. You guys can take that for what it's worth.
Dancing's great, and just having that in there I think is good because there's so many ways that people do dance. I mean, we already have the international folk dancing and the dance classes, but we don't have any performances, so that would be fun. And also we might, if we have a miners day, maybe we could get some concurrent programming going on up at the community center that would kind of complement it. So that's exciting. Got to find somebody to do it. Okay, any more ideas on the theater? We can always go back and add more later. And then I did highlight the art galleries, existing art gallery space, finding ways to invite public to view. We could knock that down to one goal and put another goal in there if we're missing anything.
I was wondering about public art. I know it's something that the DDA, is hoping to get going in a more robust way, and they are going to be presenting their public art plan to the Board of Trustees next month. And then the idea is they want to get it started, but then the hope is that it eventually is embraced by the bigger community. So anyways, I didn't know if you wanted to put something in there about public art. Maybe expanding it in the community, something like that.
Yeah, maybe we could combine, maintain and maximize usage for existing gallery space and find ways to bring the public in. And then the fifth one would be promote public art and public artists or local artists.
Yeah.
Because it's tough. I have some friends that are artists, and it's really a struggle to make a living.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that. And like bigger towns than ours, like Rapid City and stuff, some of them have all these statues all the way scattered through downtown. And it's fun to watch how different towns have tried to, give their town a special personality through the use of public art. It's a really effective thing, I think. We'll get a graffiti
I
board.
agree.
In fact, we even talked about a graffiti board once a long time ago. Does anybody else remember that?
I think there is one actually, and it's over by the Teens Inc. Because
One, yeah.
and it's mobile. So
Mhm.
and I'm not sure if it's still up, but it was up even a couple summers ago. I remember it being out there. I think it is still there.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
then
is there.
they have some space around the skate park, I think, where you can do a little bit of that too. That might have been temporary though.
Cool. Well, arts is the part that, it's such a broad range. It's hard to kind of try to capture it in 5 goals. So, is there any more discussion? Sarah, are you still there? She is not with us anymore because we haven't heard from her. I wondered if she had anything to add.
It looks
She
like she
might have
dropped off
fallen
the
off.
call. Yeah.
Yeah.
She what?
She fell off the call.
Oh, okay. All right. Shall we move on to the next one then? Culture.
Sure.
Go for it.
Okay. So culture. Now this is a goal that I feel strongly about, but I'm not sure if this is a committee identity, although I think it might be. But my number one goal would be to establish identity for Netherland by distinguishing ourselves in meaningful ways as stewards and guardians of a still thriving natural environment. Does that make sense? Is that understandable? I mean, we've
I
had different,
understand it.
we've certainly had different identities over the years, a mining town, a hippie town, a music town, you know, um, those are all part of what we are. But moving forward into the next phase, we did sign on to the Paris Climate Accord, and people do love our natural setting. And I had a really interesting discussion with Caleb Malamed, the principal up at the elementary school. And he pointed out to me, the school population has just diminished so much. So if we establish that as a cultural goal, it really ties into the education goals as well. So,
One thing I was thinking, May, that's such a beautiful statement. And if you just added the word like establish identity for Nederland by distinguishing ourselves in meaningful and creative ways
that's
as
perfect.
steward, yeah, isn't that kind of cool? Yeah.
That
I
really
think
fits.
that just expands what I think you're trying to say.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, now the next goal, is there any more comment on that one? Still thriving natural environment. We can say that as long as we don't get hit by fire, right? But it'll still be thriving no matter what happens to us. So to encourage a culture of neighborliness and mountain-ready residents. And this has been an idea I've been working on for a long time. I know that fire that started in Left Hand last year was started by somebody who put their ashes outside, hot ashes, onto the hillside, and it set fire to it. So, and people moved to town. Kayla mentioned at one of the larger meetings how there used to be a welcome pack and, Chamber of Commerce and so on and so forth. But I wonder if it wouldn't make sense to prepare a handout for new property owners and perhaps even send it to everybody just so we're all on the same page. Because I think people don't understand what some of the stuff that we all take for granted that have lived here for so long. How do you deal with the ashes? What about dogs and noise and trash and lighting? Not everybody realizes you can't put your trash out and just leave it for a couple days because it's going to be all over the neighborhood, you know. And I was talking to Larry Johns a while back, and he told me there were two instances of power lines. This was a while ago, a couple months, that had come down, or trees that had come down on power lines. And in one case, it was arcing. And the driver came in and reported immediately to Larry or to the fire department, and they were able to take care of the problem before it set fire. So,
May, this is such a great idea, and I want to share with you. You may already know this, but I think it's really fun that the fire inspector, Rick, would actually go to the movies at the theater, and they would do a little drawing, and they would give away a bucket that people could use to put their ashes in, and it was an opportunity for him to spread the word about being safe and dealing with your ashes. And just so you know, he is talking to the town too about ways that we can, because we already have messaging about this in our website, but you got to keep figuring out innovative ways to send out the information. So anyways, I just wanted you to know, I think that's a great idea. It looks like Dawn also said that in the chat, she said she agrees that it's a great idea. And then oh, the Intermountain Alliance had been discussing the informational flyer for a long time. The challenge is, how do you distribute the information? So, if we keep this more in the goals arena, when we get down to where we're talking about how are we going to meet those goals, we could maybe talk about that. How do we share that? But again, I was wondering if you wanted to add like the word innovative or something like that in that sentence. Encourage a culture. I don't know exactly how to put it. I'd have to think about it a little bit. I do like how it sounds, mountain ready residents. I mean, what do you guys think? Deb, what do you think?
I'm sort of questioning putting this in the culture bucket. I almost put it in the education bucket, which is sort of just read sort of. I would move that into education. Culture, I always think of heritage, or I like the first sentence I really liked. I think that like totally flies under culture. I think this would go under education, where we educate people about moving to the mountains. And it really is, you know, it's ashes, it's trash, it's living with wildlife, and it's a pretty broad spectrum. Does that answer your question?
That's a great idea. What do you think, May?
I agree. Let's flip it over and add living with wildlife.
Cool.
Thanks.
Because there's just so much, I mean, there's so much that falls into that bucket that I personally have fielded numerous times over the years. I mean, I remember going hiking and there were people walking up the trail and they had no water, no jackets, no survival gear whatsoever. And I looked at them and I had an extra air horn because that's what I hike with for wild animals. And I gave them my air horn and said, you know, if you see something chasing you or something in the woods, this will help you. But, you know, education is such a, you know, Jill Dreves be a great one to get on board with that.
Yeah, we should run those by her, all of this by her. Because she has a good way of she's been doing it long enough. She knows. I should have sent this to her. It slipped my mind, but that'd be a good thing to do, is get her input on that. Okay. And I mean, if we're going to put it under education, a sidelight of that one, I guess, would be maybe a separate one or a similar one that we could hand out at the visitor center also, about, you know, leashing your pet and campfires. And it's interesting that this IMA has been discussing the information flyer for a long time. I see a little bit different handouts for tourists and campers than for residents. Although a lot of this, it would probably be a lot of the same information, but put in a different way. So we might want to, I don't know, what do you think about saying encourage a culture of neighborliness and mountain ready residents and visitors? And then we
Yeah,
could throw it
that's
up
good.
right on the webpage too, for as people plan their trips.
That's another person who had a really great write-up was Hanson, who just left, because he had things that he handed out to during socks and sandwiches, and he had a lot of really good information about living in the woods. What do you do with your trash? So that's another resource that sort of popped into my head while we were sitting here talking.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting to go to the niche
I
thing.
can make sure you know the next one because I'm on that committee. I can make sure that you know about that, May. And Claudia, who was the outreach person, although now Bridget is going to take over, and she did work as well last summer. They will be distributing this information, and I'd be happy to make sure you. The only thing is, I think the next meeting is towards the end of April. So we'll be done with these things, but did you want to try to talk to the person at the church who's kind of taking over that project, or Bridget?
Who's the person at the church?
Oh, I'm trying to remember her first name. She's one of the elders. That's what they call like their kind of governing group of people. They're called elders. I'm trying to remember what Kip is her last name, I think. Anyways, I can get that information for
Well,
you if you'd like to connect with them.
I do want to connect. It's just slipped my mind. if I go to the website, is some of this stuff up there, or is it still kind of a work in progress?
The niche website was being managed pretty well up until maybe 2 or 3 months ago. So there's probably some good information, but I can also look for the latest newsletter that Hanson did and that kind of thing, and I could send it to you.
Oh, that'd be great. Could you send it to all the members of the committee, maybe, so we can
Sure,
all take a look? That'd be
of
wonderful.
course.
Thanks,
Sure.
Karen. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so going back to culture, we got number one. Now, bring back festivals. And by that, I don't mean just music festivals, outdoor events, Miners Day. I still remember the Wind Festival. Um, there's the art festival and new music festivals that may come to us. So bring back festivals and outdoor events. And Karen, I probably got this name wrong. In the renewed, whatever it is, we just got this grant, so I'm sure I want to get it right here.
The grant that the
The
goal.
grant doesn't, yeah, the grant doesn't cover Gershio. They actually asked us to take it out. So
Yeah, and
the
they
original,
they won't put money towards, it can't be used towards things like performance based, for instance.
Yeah, but are we going to get that dirt work moved around, in time to, do some batting practice or something out there this year?
so we
Miranda
still
knows
haven't,
a little.
yeah, we're still working on the logistics we just got the grant. So our plan is for our administrative team to come together next week to talk about what we can do in that area. And I can be sure that the dirt is considered.
Yeah, if you guys have any kind of a memo or anything, I think that would be of interest to everybody on the committee also, because it's really potentially the heart of our town, where you go with your kids or your mother-in-law or your friends. It could be really nice, even with the propane tanks there. So I'd love to be informed of that.
I would argue that maybe you should change this just to throughout town, since people are using various spaces for festivals and outdoor events, and not focus on the Gershio piece.
Yeah, the festival they had at the library for Miners Day when Tom was still alive was a really successful event. I thought that was really
The
nice.
150th Caribou anniversary party.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it was fun that it was also spread over a couple days and included events at the Caribou Room and, all that. It was really wonderful.
It was. So I've left it kind of open. Does anyone, you wordsmiths out there, want to tinker with it?
I don't know
Yeah,
if I'd say bring back festivals just because they are ongoing. I mean, I could see saying something along the lines of um oh, what am I trying to say? I have to think about it a minute, but continue to encourage or continue to support and grow festivals and outdoor events throughout the town. Something like that. Because I wouldn't
Right.
say festivals are gone. Um,
well,
COVID,
COVID,
of course, has done a number, but
yeah,
just the whole 150th, because I was on the steering committee for that. It was a collaboration with the town, the mining museum, and the library, and then the historical society. The whole idea was to gauge and see, hey, are people even interested? Would they even come? And we were planning to do another one, last September, but that, of course, we're in the middle of COVID and we can't do it now either because of COVID. Um, and hopefully, Frozen Dead Guy Day, same story. I'm still hopeful that NedFest will return. Um,
huh.
but I think if there's one in particular that you're thinking about that you want to bring back, I just don't know if you want to make that a whole goal for culture. I'm just not sure what I guess I
Well,
should ask.
one of the words that I like to that I think should be kind of a mantra are partnerships. I don't know whether the town really partners, but for example, KGNU radio, you know, if you go through certain things and they like your event, it'll be a KGNU sponsored event. So I would think that any festival that exists in town, unless it's very small, is in partnership with a town. So could we say partner um, and sponsor, or partner?
Well, you don't want to just keep it, constricted to the town, right? You want, businesses, or let's say there's, you know, uh, I don't know. I wouldn't, a foundation, whatever. So more than just the town. That's why I was saying something like support and grow festivals, because
I
that
mean,
support could be from a variety of resources, and that could be in kind, it could be cash, it could be helping with the marketing and spreading the word, and whatever.
Yeah, I like partner and sponsor. I don't like grow, because someone who, and Deb can speak to whether there's going to be NetFest again, but I think some people are going to see grow and think NetFest on steroids is going to be big, you know.
Sure,
So
sure. I was
I
just
mean,
brainstorming. I'm not tied to any words.
where my brain goes to wordsmith it would be encourage festivals and outdoor events, and leave it at that.
I like that. Yeah.
Just encourage festivals and outdoor events. Don't even put anything else, because it could be at the mining museum. It could be like we had wine tasting at the community center. It could be an event at Wild Bear. It could be so many different things. I think we almost restrict ourselves by defining it location wise.
Yeah, you and Karen agree on that. Let's take out those last two words then.
So I would just say encourage festivals and outdoor events. That's it. Sweet and simple.
I like it.
Cool. And I'm not
Yay.
talking about NetFest. Yeah.
And you're not talking about NetFest. All right.
No, I'm not gonna broach the subject at this moment in time.
Okay, so culture, goal number 3. I know we've talked about this Indigenous stewardship. Whoa, there's a lot of S's here. Awareness for somebody that struggles with a lisp. Join the Boulder initiative to recognize tribal stewardship, and eventually either reactivate the powwow or reactivate natives, culture. But I think everybody would love to see the powwow back. This is a pretty big one, but it kind of opens the door to dialogue with people like Right Relationships in Boulder. They're trying to put a powwow on down there and they don't have the space. They really ought to do it here. It's either that or Folsom Field. I mean, so I could see a lot of ways that Netherlands could define itself not only as environmentally conscious, but environmentally conscious in the practical ways that Native American stewardship has taught us. For example, if you're going to go collect arnica off the hillside, don't cut them all down. Leave some. you know. It's also basic environmental science, but some people will resonate more if they think if it's coming directly from people who were here before we were. And so, Deb, do you have any objection to that?
No, I'd almost expand it and
Okay.
and include the mining history. Like I would expand it to be more than just one thing, because there's Indigenous stewardship awareness. I understand that's very specific. So I'm trying to think of how to make it so that it's actually more inclusive, so that it's the miners that were here, it's the Native Americans that were here, it's, you know, all the different factions who have gone through here. And I'm sort of kicking around words. I like it. I like stewardship awareness also. And I understand your focus on the powwow. But it's almost like I go into a more general statement with those, you know, one bullet point is the Indigenous stewardship awareness. Another bullet point would be mining days. Another bullet point could burro runs. I mean, I'm just sort of pulling things out of my brain. So it's almost a historical awareness, or I don't know, work with me.
That's the kind of thing the Peak to Pre Chorale does when they have a concert. They'll take something out of our history, like the first hanging in Colorado was in Central City, and it involved a love triangle. They had an actual scaffold that they built, and when they hung the guy, they had pulleys on his back, so it would look like he was going down the chute, but he didn't get his neck broken. But is that the kind of stuff you're?
Yes, that's totally
Yeah.
awesome. So that it's more inclusive, because I think that what you have as number 4 is important, but it's almost exclusive of so many other aspects of our history.
Well, I put it as a separate bullet point because it's so often overlooked. I can see making this bullet point about highlighting our history, and I think that, you know, it goes on from there. We have the music studio. A lot of people are fascinated by that, you know.
Right.
And apparently there was some kind of observatory up on Magnolia. We have all kinds of interesting facets, and we only have 4 goals here now since we flipped one down to education. And I did put in, maybe we should jump on to the education, because I put in there stuff about intergenerational and so forth. But that also belongs in culture. Um,
Right, there is crossover for sure. You know, which
let's
is the
see.
beauty of it.
Mentorship and intergenerational exchange. Maybe we should go um, back up, and I don't know whether we should do a bullet point separate from the Native American stewardship and awareness, because that way, if we are trying to get kind of put together a grant or something like that, we can point to that as an individual thing, but it does fit in to the larger thing. How would we, let's write it, explore and celebrate our history.
Cool. Good.
Okay, we could,
Then mm-hmm.
should we make that the beginning of that one, or make it a, that would really fit there, explore and, I
Mm-hmm.
already forgot.
I think that's perfect. It's broad enough that it leaves opportunity for interpretation.
May, will you say it again? Sorry.
Oh God, I was afraid you were going to say that. Explore and what was the other one?
And educate?
No.
Celebrate.
Oh, that's right.
Celebrate.
Thank you, Don. Okay.
Yeah, celebrate.
History and Indigenous.
Our, let's see. Explore and celebrate our history. That could almost be a separate bullet point.
I think that's sweet and to the point.
Right there as a bullet point.
Yeah.
Okay. Then do you want to keep the Indigenous thing? Make that item 4. I would put that nice sharp one.
Sure.
Explore and celebrate would be 3. And then let's skip over this Indigenous thing for a minute and go to the last one. Support via the town webpage a great calendar of events which is geared to cultural and sporting events only. In other words, no town meetings, because I think we could have a whole different calendar that's more comprehensive for that. But this one would include such things as exhibits, um, events, festivals, and you make, like, if you go to, well, sometimes I want to go to the Adams County Fairground and see if there's a horse sale. I can go to their calendar and they have it several months out, so you can plan, oh, this is when the fair is, this is when the horse sale is going to be. So for people who are coming in for Airbnb, I mean, they plan their trips around stuff like this, and usually they already know, it's the concert calendar at the Caribou Room, or whatever it is they're interested in, the ski races up at Eldora for the developmentally, you know, the ones that are disabled. And people come up specifically for those events. But if we had a list of that stuff, it might be good. I don't know. What do you think? Is that, Deb, you're kind of the computer whiz. How does that read?
Well, didn't, I mean, is Dawn still in here? Because I thought we had something at one point, but for some reason I'm thinking that it was driven by the community center.
Oh, a calendar.
Yeah, is Dawn still here?
So the community center does have a calendar, and that's the problem. So town also has a calendar, and it was recently brought to our attention that we weren't using it. However, I've identified that they're linked together. So if I try to like stick a bunch of meetings on town calendar, it's going to mess with the community center calendar. So I think this is a great goal because it's very important to figure out how to separate out kind of town business from more of that kind of the fun things to do in our community. And I don't want them to get kind of combined and meshed into one.
Right.
Yep.
So it exists, it just needs to be tweaked.
Well, the only thing is that the community center one has things that are going on at the community center. Right. So really, if you're talking about, and again, this Envision 2030 is for the full community. And so you've got events going on in the restaurants and the taverns. You've got events going on at the Carousel of Happiness and the Caribou Room, and events going all over the place, which the town, we just don't have the capacity to be able to be tracking all of that and giving that information. And of course, we couldn't be seen as favoring one venue over another or whatever. So I'm not really sure who is the right entity to try to maintain a community calendar. Normally if you have a chamber of commerce, or if you have like a arts collaborative group for the community, those folks are the ones who would usually put something together like a comprehensive kind of arts, culture, events calendar. But we really don't have that in town.
Has the DDA tackled this at all?
I think that's outside their wheelhouse. They're really all about, the whole reason DDAs exist is to really improve the infrastructure in the downtown area. It was set up for blighted communities so that they could be improved and re-energized. And so they don't really do the same thing that a chamber of commerce would do, which is more that kind of programming, marketing, and that sort of thing. It's not like you couldn't ask them though, if it would be something they'd be interested in. I'm guessing no, though, that they just don't have the bandwidth, and that's outside their purpose.
I saw that I think they just got money to work on their website. So I thought that might be an interesting dovetail, but I get it.
Yeah.
So the community calendar piece has been tried over and over and over again. I'm not talking community center calendar. I'm talking community calendar like you're discussing.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Over the years, Jeanette Taylor has tried, and Gail Eddy tried to maintain one. Barb Hart has tried. We tried for years, even before the computer times, to get
Yeah.
collaborative thing together that would include the school events and the nonprofit events and the town events. So we weren't overlapping, and
Right.
we just haven't figured it out yet.
You
So
know,
that's
one person that comes to mind, volunteer because she's not here, but I don't know whether she'd want to do it or she could do it, but the lady that works at the visitor center, Sharon, she and her husband Bert are pretty, you know, capable people, and I understand that there'd be a time uh you'd have to spend some time on it, but if you were pretty organized and you restricted what you were doing, I mean, you could have a calendar, but you know, the Netherland would be on it, festivals that are scheduled would be on it, town sponsored events would definitely be on it. And then you could link to businesses that wanted to be linked to.
So May, I'm just going to redirect and remind you guys, you're talking big picture. You don't have to figure out how the goal will be achieved at this point. And the reason why I'm sorry to interrupt, but you have about 9 minutes left.
No, you're
And
right.
so I just wanted to make sure you guys are sort of fleshing out your goals for education tonight, if that's what you would like to do. And don't I wouldn't worry so much about the specifics of how you're going to reach those goals at this point, but just set them up.
Okay. So let's go back to culture before we leave it. And, or we, no, let's go on to education and then we'll come back and figure out how many goals we're going to have under culture. So, the education component that wasn't culture, we've already talked about. Two, establish partnerships with schools to engage students and parents in a fun, productive, and community minded way. For example, weed pulls, trail work, stargazing nights, species identification walks. I know this would be, I mean, I did talk to Caleb about it, and he thought there'd be some interest in it. And we've done that kind of thing before. But I think one of the things that is really troublesome, I think that school is the canary in the closet. I think we really want to get people up here that want to be here for their kids, if we can define ourselves by being a little bit different, you know, going back to that community energy we used to have. So,
May, when the two principals ago and then the principal one ago and now the principal who's leaving the middle school, high school, I had this conversation with all of those people about finding, those few good things that we can do up here in our schools that nobody else can do. Things like the mountain biking and the snowshoeing and the skiing and the environmental science and water preservation and water protection and all these other things, because I agree with you. We can't be everything to everybody. And maybe we can't, have a football team necessarily or some of these other things, but there are things we could do that are really outstanding. And it kind of ties back to what you said. I think it might have been the first goal under culture, where we define ourselves as this unique community, and it shines through everything we do. And one of that is our education approach or philosophy or however you want to put it. But I agree. I think that if we could define ourselves, people would actually come up here to go to school then. If you're doing something really super cool that's needed, and things like water protection and preservation and environmental studies and climate change study and things like that, I could just see us rocking it. Anyways, that's my 2 cents worth.
awesome. Any other comments? Okay, three, recognize that learning is a lifelong process and offer opportunities for residents to participate in an active process of tracking elements. This is going to need some wordsmithing, I'm sure. We signed on to with the Paris Climate Accord. I don't even know what that is, but I assume it's stuff like local air quality, temperatures, traffic flow, energy use, species diversity, and so on. And this ties into what we were just talking about. Because if the town had a commitment like that we really were trying to do that, and then we got a lot of people engaged in various facets of it. And really all we need is kind of the framework and then try to put the pieces into the puzzle.
Yeah, how about something like for residents to participate in the advancement of community vision or goals or what have you, initiatives, instead of like lining them out. And you could say, give an example, like the Paris Climate Accord if you wanted to, or just to participate in the advancements of goals such as addressing climate change challenges or something.
Or keeping our air and water pure or something like that.
Yeah.
Because, when you start to talk about climate change, I think we've already been working on like the big picture stuff, like the solar gardens and Excel and the building codes and so forth. But trying to articulate a thing here where people realize that things are changing as we go, like when you walk past a parking lot, you can feel the temperature go up. And just tracking stuff like that, it seems like it'd be fun for elementary school kids. And air has to do with our traffic.
So one thing I was going to suggest is you only have a couple minutes left. So, and in that time, you want to think about, when you are going to meet again. And maybe all of you could just go on, go to these Google Docs, maybe massage things or put comments or do suggested edits and kind of work on finalizing some of these things a little bit between your meetings. Does that sound like a good idea?
That totally works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, do we have a full committee meeting next week or not?
We don't. So that was the one that got moved to the 30th, but I'll need everyone to be done with their draft goals and objectives by Monday, the 29th. And so,
Okay, so Deb, are you still going to be here next week?
I leave. When do I leave? I leave at the end of next week. But I can totally like go online and tweak stuff.
Okay.
That's not
all right. Dawn, feel free to count yourself as a participant if everybody's okay with that. I mean, if you have ideas to share, have at it.
Absolutely, that's okay.
I do have some thoughts, and I can talk to you. We can have an offline conversation, May, and I would love to be included. Thank you.
All right, great. Deb,
so I just wanted to let you all know that, sorry, when I was sharing my screen, I couldn't check my emails. Sarah had sent me 2 emails stating that she needs to resign just because of all the commitments going on in her world.
Oh no.
Yeah, so.
So
okay.
Dawn.
Well, yeah. Yeah, Deb, are you good? Should we add another member?
And May, I'm willing to, help massage those goals as well.
Well, I also have a bigger question, and that is, given that, is there a limited, do you have to have a mandatory?
Is there any way you could talk up a little bit? I'm having a really hard time hearing you, and it could be my device, but
oh, okay.
I'd appreciate that.
Is that any better?
A little.
Better?
A little.
So I guess one of my questions is there a mandatory number of people that have to be on these committees for this to be viable?
No, I mean,
Not
the
really,
preference was to have 3 just to have additional feedback. But ultimately, what you're looking for is getting that feedback from the community, which is the April
Right.
step. So I think it's okay to keep working with this
Yeah.
group here and adding John, and I think it's a great addition if John's good with it.
Yeah, because
Okay,
this is
cool.
all going to go to the public, and then the public's going to weigh in, and so you're going to have a much wider net of
Perfect.
people. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, duly noted. And so it's 5:30, and we're gonna keep the conversation going through the miracle of the internet and the phone.
Thanks, guys.
So that's it.
All right, thank you. And we can do through email as well and just keep the conversation going.
Thanks, everybody. Great meeting.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yes, got a lot of good work done.
Okay, bye.
Bye.